In the early 1800s, America was beginning to establish its place in the world of art. It took its cues from the leading art centers of Europe, Italy, France, and England, the art institutions in Rome and Paris and London. 19th century America understood that its natural scenic beauty served as its calling card to artists and art collectors both home and abroad. Unlike the Old World, this New World had no long-standing tradition like the ancient Romans or the classical Greek, those people who had led us to such great ideas as Gothic cathedrals, Renaissance paintings, Baroque sculpture, the Dutch Golden Age. But what America did have was land, and lots of it. Native, pristine wilderness, broad flowing streams, lakes, and rivers, hues of orange and reds and yellows, and mountains to showcase all that beauty. What better place than the Hudson River in upstate New York, with its colorful villages, the legends of the headless horseman, and those oh so quaint little towns. One particular school of painters emerged around 1820. We call it the Hudson River School. I thought as a small child, looking at the paintings of the Hudson River in my grandmother's home, I thought there had to be a school building somewhere with classes and outdoor playgrounds. Maybe a baseball team like the New York Yankees.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and crackers.
I was so disappointed to learn that no such school building existed. Nothing even close to what modern artist George Deems imagined in this 1985 oil on canvas. He saw it as I did. He imagined old wooden benches lined up neatly in rows, placed outside on an artist's front porch, waiting for students to arrive. The only thing real was this actual front porch of one of its artists' home. The Hudson River School began as a collection of visionary young men and women sensing the lush scenery that America had to offer. They began capturing with their paintbrushes something of its grandeur, not from inside a studio, but outdoors, surrounded by all the elements, winter, spring, summer, and fall. Artists like Asher B. Durand, Frederick Edwin Church. They in turn influenced later generations like Albert Bierstadt, and even a playful Americana through the eyes of Winslow Homer. One artist who shared that vision was a young Englishman named Thomas Cole. Thomas Cole took a steamer up the Hudson River in 1825 to explore its charm. He is now considered the founder of this movement known as the Hudson River School. Thomas Cole was born in 1801 near Manchester, England, a city noted for its rapid growth in the era of Industrial Revolution. Cole saw firsthand how harsh those effects could be. This scene was painted by Philippe Jacques de Lotteberg the year Thomas was born. Note the massive smoke and fire from a factory where English men, women, and even children toiled under brutal working conditions 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. Cole learned as a child. He learned early on what the might of machine could mean. Thomas Cole's paintings wrestled with these implications when he first captured scenes of early America in its natural wonders. The panoramic views before him revealed forests and waterfalls and mountain vistas, deep gorges, cliff walls reaching as far as the eye could see. This painting, done by a close friend and fellow founder of the Hudson River School, Asher B. Durand, was a kind of memoir piece. Durand painted it after Cole's death as a tribute to Cole's lasting legacy for America's art. Cole is seen here on the right, next to the poet William Cullen Bryant. Cole was a master of landscape, lands of enchantment, calm, peaceful, often an undisturbed Eden-like paradise. Adam and Eve seen here waving to God. But Cole was conflicted about the challenges he faced. Does he paint what he sees, or does he paint like he wanted it to be? For every Eden, he understood there was also a dark side, hubris and greed and lust for power. You are looking at his companion piece to Paradise. It's called The Expulsion from the Garden. It was painted in 1828. It's one of his first sets of paintings. It's not a pleasant sight. Darkness, fire, the abyss. Cole wrestled with his vision of a future America. Would progress mean the inevitable encroachment of the industrialization of the world? Would America become another England? This romantic view in his colorful painting entitled River in the Catskills shows waters drifting slowly downstream. Meanwhile, the arrival of the steam locomotive was a reality. How would he paint it? His solution? His solution was to include it. Barely. You'll notice it's not easy to find. It's almost hidden from view, but you can see a railroad in the middle ground moving left to right. A close-up detail will show you the train. But even a section of that train is still obscured from our view. This 1843 painting, by the way, is regarded as the earliest oil painting in America to depict a locomotive. One observer has noted that Cole painted these landscapes to either make a statement against what he was witnessing or as a historical preservation of how the scenery looked before it was altered to accommodate modernization. Cole once wryly noted that the growth of the railroad was financed by, quote, copper-hearted barbarians. Ouch. Thomas Cole acquired different techniques and skills throughout his career to depict his imagery that he either saw or imagined. He learned to use allegory, for example, as a way to explore themes of human endeavor and hint at the same time at a moral consciousness and many of those topics that he was addressing. Stories of the little guy rising to the top, heroes doing great things, humans being challenged by nature. What truths might these be pointing to? A series called The Voyage of Life is a good example. 4 paintings tell a narrative, the archetype story of a young boy becoming a man. It was described in a book by Lewis Noble, his pastor in Catskill, New York. Cole imagines a voyager traveling in a boat on a river through the mid-19th century American wilderness. Voyage of Life's first stage is infancy, childhood. His second stage is youth. Third stage is manhood. And fourth is old age. Allegory, spiritual themes, humankind versus nature, those concepts, they are all there. Perhaps his most complete, most intense examination of human endeavor is best seen in his series, which he completed in 1836. He painted this series for a wealthy patron named Luman Reed, who requested a large-scale project for his home in New York City. It's a fantastic series. Cole entitled the series The Course of Empire. This whole series is now held together in one place at the New York State Historical Society Museum in New York City, not far from Central Park. Here are 5 moments in time. Humanity begins in a savage state. The second moment in time is pastoral or Arcadia. The third is called the consummation of empire. The fourth is the destruction of empire. And the last image is called the desolation of humanity. Like many artists in the early 19th century, Cole went to Rome and Athens and studied these sites. He studied the worlds of ancient civilizations. This series of painting took him 10 years to complete, from his moment of envisioning it until it was completed for Mr. Luhmann's house, Greenwich, New York. These paintings are all replete with historical associations, religious and moral sentiments, and what Cole himself perceived to be universal truths about humankind, the natural world we live in, and our relationship to one another. If you pause this video and go back and look at it, you'll see one focal point that holds these 5 scenes together. It is a large mountain in the background to the right. It will appear in all 5 scenes, same piece of territory and ground. But look at how humanity has changed that piece of geography over time. That's a tour de force of painting, to be sure. Implications abound for conversations about empires, past and present and future. I think that might be a topic perhaps for a future discussion. Since his death at the age of 47, unexpectedly in 1848, some have called this painting that you see before you now, known as the Oxbow, his most notable work. It hangs in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. The Met describes this work with these words: a masterpiece of American landscape painting, laden with possible interpretations. Officially, this title is View from Mount Holyoke, Northampton, Massachusetts, after a thunderstorm. The Oxbow. That's a mouthful. It's also a large painting. It's more than 4 feet by 6 feet, considerably large by American standards. It depicts a romantic view of nature. There's a large panorama unfolding before us of the Connecticut River Valley right after a thunderstorm. Like all great art, it offers a variety of interpretations. It can be seen, for example, as a new country showcasing its natural beauty. It can be seen as a statement by the Hudson River School about the then prevailing notion that history paintings were the most important subject an artist could depict. Well, here is a landscape painting now challenging such notions as history being more lofty than anything else. It could be seen, as some observers did, of 19th century American art. They could see in it a confrontation between wilderness and civilization. You could also say that Thomas Cole is commenting on America's westward expansion and what you and I learned back in school as manifest destiny. This is a view from the top of a mountain looking down upon a winding river that opens up to sweeping vistas of hills and plains. Visually, you can imagine this painting being divided in 2 sections, left and right. Each of those sections could stand on its own as a worthy landscape painting. Left is storm and wind and violent rain, nature's destruction. On the right is sunshine, calm breezes, peaceful waters, life in all its fullness. The forest on the left, with its trees in the foreground, show the effects that this power of nature has as a dark storm with sheets of rain and wind sweep from left to right. Flashes of lightning, seen here on the left, will give way to crashes of thunder. Only the flock of birds can hear it. We can't, but they can. They hurry to safety. Lush greenery contrasts with what's left of a stand of trees with stumps and limbs sheared off, scattered in the foreground. This painting reminds me of a great British painting by a colleague of Thomas Cole named Turner. Turner shows the force in his own interpretation of nature and wind and power and might in his 1812 painting of Hannibal crossing the Alps. In Cole's painting, in the center of the painting is the bend of the Connecticut River, often described as an oxbow. Recreation, perhaps, for those sailing and canoeing. It's a fine place to be on an afternoon. On the right of the river are fields of grain, farms and farmers hard at work, farmhouses with chimneys of smoke, bright sunshine bathing the scene with sunny light and green pastures for their growing livestock. Off in the distance is a land, a wilderness, waiting to be explored. Many 19th century Americans viewed their country as a land just waiting to be plowed and conquered to meet their growing needs. It was to be a land blessed by God and designed to be a nation destined for greatness. Perhaps Cole echoes these lofty spiritual thoughts. Look at the hill in the background. It looks to me like there's some land that has been carved out with some kind of intentional markings. Could those markings be America's first look at a wintertime ski resort with slopes waiting for snow and busy skiers? No, I don't think so. Some scholars of ancient Hebrew have pointed to those markings as actual Hebrew letters. If you read the letters from God's point of view, those Hebrew letters spell out the Hebrew name for God, Shaddai, which means Almighty. If you choose to read them from a human point of view, they spell the biblical name Noah, the guy who felt firsthand the power of nature and lots of rain and more rain and lots of thunderstorms. Since Hebrew, unlike English, can be read both upside down and right side up, such a hidden symbol is entirely plausible. Speaking of something a bit hidden, Thomas Cole teases the viewer by including himself hidden down in the scenery down low. Can you find him? Wearing a top hat, turning to face us, as if we have just suddenly interrupted his work, he pauses, his umbrella waiting nearby with his equipment. Thomas Cole never claimed to be a painter of people. a portrait painter. He was smart enough to understand that, and he decided early in his career to make sure that any images of people would always be secondary to the landscape around them. Himself included. The larger question for me, I think, is Thomas Cole's love for the world that he paints. Landscape, serene and sublime, uninterrupted by human intervention. This would become Cole's lasting imprint on the world around him. Remember that painting from England the year he was born? That painting was designed to advance human progress, and it left Cole wary of destruction of the natural world. His paintings would frequently romanticize a view he was looking at. Catterskill's Waterfalls is a good example. This double-tiered waterfall, the highest in New York State, was captured on a canvas by Cole in 1826. It would become the first painting he did that was praised by the press and by the public, and it secured his position as the best-known artist of his day. What we don't see is the large tourist hotel that stood nearby at the top left. Nor do we see a large bridge, similar to this modern update which now would be seen in a photograph of this area. Thomas Cole could remove those things which interfered with his vision of beauty and America's potential for greatness. But Cole could also add images. Look at the Native American in the center of the painting, a symbol of the indigenous peoples already here. That Native American would certainly have never been welcomed there in 1826. Thomas Cole is not particularly well known in our day. His legacy is still unfolding. But his work is lasting and inspiring. His legacy goes beyond his prestige as founder of the American Academy of Art and Design. He wrote these words in an essay published in 1836. He wrote this: "I cannot but express my sorrow that the beauty of such landscapes are quickly passing away. The ravages of the axe are daily increasing. The most noble scenes are made desolate. And oftentimes, with a wantonness and barbarism, they are scarcely credible in a civilized nation." End quote. As one biographer puts it, in many ways, Cole's art epitomizes all the contradictions of European settler culture in the New World. Thomas Cole was in love with the sublime wilderness of the American landscape, and he sought to preserve it with his art. I think Thomas Cole's paintbrush gives us hope. His words, I think, give us direction. Both of those are gifts that can still speak to us here and now.